Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. I am your host, Lorenzo Melcher, coming to you from PB Studios. If you don't recall, I finally named my parents' basement studios, so now I just say PB. It took a while to figure that out, but I did. Thanks to all of you for always liking, sharing, subscribing, downloading the podcast. Anything you do to help the podcast grow is greatly appreciated. Check out any social media, just search the Nerdball Podcast. Don't forget about the YouTube page. I have been doing TikToks, and then I stopped because my video stopped working. So hopefully this video comes out okay. If not, then there's some other major changes I got to do. Maybe it's not doing video. So we'll see how it goes. I do want to continue to do video because it's fun, and it's fun putting out social media posts, and people seem to like it, and I've gained some followers that way, so I want to keep doing it. But again, thanks to all of you, and enjoy the episode.
Well, hello, my name's Chris Foley. I am a retiring educator from Owens Community College, teaching the landscape and turfgrass management program. And this is the Nerdball Podcast.
This is the Nerdball Podcast with Lorenzo Melcher.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Foley, thanks for coming on the podcast today. You have been, even when I was done with school, I'd always meet people that, I'm taking classes there. So I always know somebody who knows you. So I'm really excited to come talk to you. You know, Sally and Haley, they work for us at the Metro Parks.
Yep.
I told them you were coming on, and they're really excited to listen. So thanks for coming on here.
Yeah, sure.
The first question I always ask people is, what is something you're nerding out about? Something you're really into, something to get you away from, your job, just something that you can sit back and whether you're doing it for a long time or you just started it, just like a new thing you're into.
Yeah. Wow, that's an interesting question. I've been looking forward to since I was going to retire. Looking forward to doing so many things. And guess what? I haven't really started doing many of them yet. I've kind of been chilling, to be honest. Yeah, I've just kind of catching my breath, I think, before I go into that next stage and get things going. So, I mean, I'm still a plant geek.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've always shared with the students and other people, is just that aspect.
How'd you come to be like, you know what? I nerd out about all plants. Like, was that something you did when you were little and it just always carried through, or?
No. So wait, we're ready for the story? Are we starting?
We can do whatever you want.
I was born and raised. No, I grew up north of Detroit in Royal Oak, and my first job was at a garden center called Frank's Nursery, which don't exist anymore, but they were a chain. There was 3 stores in Toledo, and this was up in Detroit where they were founded. So it was my first job at 16. I worked there all through high school, and I remember the day I'm sitting at the kitchen table, my aunt's sitting there and visiting, and I'm a senior in high school, and she's like, "So what are you going to do after high school?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, what about going into horticulture?" And I'm like, "What's that?" So I worked at this garden center for 3 or 4 years, right? I was like the go-to guy because I worked there for so long. There were managers would come and go all the time, these managers. And each one of them would know like one thing. One guy would know houseplants. Another guy would know turf. Another person would know houseplant or some other diseases or bugs or something. And so I learned from all of them. And I didn't realize, I had no idea it was called horticulture. And so I'm like, "Oh, you can go to school for that?" And she's like, "Well, yeah." So I researched it. And of course, back then, you research the old fashioned way. You can't just Google it. And Michigan State was the only place that had a program. And I went there, and literally, because I took some college classes in high school, I went in and I was able to take Woody ID the very first semester, which normally you don't take till second year.
Okay. Took
it my very first semester, fell in love with it. And that ever since then, I've just been into trees and shrubs. I just didn't realize it as a high school kid that I was. That's what you were doing. That's what I was doing. That was my destiny. But that Woody ID class just flipped a switch.
And it is, and it could work the other way too. I remember when I first went to Owens, before I started going to landscape and turfgrass management classes, I was out of high school. I went to BG. They politely asked me not to come back. I wasn't going to school. I just wasn't going to class.
Yeah.
And then I went to Owens, and I wanted to be a history teacher, and I took a history class, and for whatever reason, I did not click with that teacher, and it kind of turned me off on it.
Yeah.
So then Owens asked me not to come back for a little bit too. So I took a few years off, but it could just be one thing. And in your instance, you were doing it for 3 years even, and you're like, well, this is obviously just a job I'm doing in high school. I'm going to do something else,
right?
But then, like you say, you took that one class and that was it.
Yep.
What about Woody ID was just like, you know what, this is awesome.
Well, I guess I can't. That's a long time ago now. You're
Sure.
talking, Lorenzo, but but I think it was just that. Wow, what did I just learn? And now back then those were called terms. They were 10 weeks instead of a 16-week semester. But what did I just learn in 10 weeks? And that's what It's funny you ask because the other night we're in design class right now, and of course we're down to like hardly any students in the program. And as you mentioned, Sally and Haley are in design, as well as Gage, another student. He's a golf guy. And he said, so what was your favorite class to teach? And I, without much hesitation, said Woody ID. And then somebody else asked, well, why? And I said, because it's not anything you've ever had before. All these other classes you've had since, first grade, you were doing this or that or whatever. And you've learned a lot of things, but you've never had really something like this. And you might know a maple or an oak tree. But all of a sudden, at that final exam, you walk in a room and there's 50 specimens laying on the table and you see their faces kind of go, whoa. And then I always ask them, yeah, but think about 16 weeks ago, if you'd have walked in here, you would have known nothing. And now all of a sudden you're just kind of like, you can just see that trigger switch, it just flips. And I think that's what it was for me as well. It was just that aspect of, I didn't know any. I thought I knew stuff from working at Frank's. Guess what? I didn't know. I didn't know diddly. I mean, there was just so much more out there.
Yeah.
And that I think for me it was big for me, and then it's also why I loved teaching that class so much. This last fall, I retired September 1st, and it was the first time in 34 years I hadn't taught Woody ID. And the first few weeks on Wednesdays, I'm like, man, it's Wednesday. I should be out walking campus with students right now. And that was, it just kind of clicked that I missed that. It's like, wow, that was definitely a good 3 hours of my week was walking around campus with students doing Woody ID walks. It was a great time. I missed that part.
Now, it seems like the answer would be no, but something, and maybe it's because the students coming in, but it just feel like the year after year for me, I'd be like, all right, how do I make this? You always want to improve or better or different, but something like this, it's like it is what it is. Like you have to teach this thing.
Right.
How did you just overcome that at teaching it for so long? It's just after a while, you're just like, well, it is what it is, and I love doing it. So what am I going to change?
You mean about the class?
Yeah, about just about the class.
Well, all my classes have changed. In the way I present them, I guess, or how I teach them. And Woody ID is the perfect example because it might have been my favorite class, but for a lot of the students, it is not, because it's hard, right? I mean, I don't know how much of it you remember, but it's not an easy class.
It's very hard. And what makes it hard is that everything looks the same. Like there's a lot of things that look the same.
Right.
But what you're good at is, making sure, you give us steps, right? Here's the first step. Is it alternate or opposite?
There's a process,
right?
man.
And then you go through all these things. And once you learn that, then it does make it a lot easier. And then also, of course, all your criticisms was like, the one I always remember is like, well, you can tell this is it because it has a Boydie bud. Like, well, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything.
Nope,
but it helps you.
Right. Nope, exactly. Helps you remember the name. Yeah. For Acer platanoides. Yes, exactly. Norway maple. That Foleyisms are, it's, I don't know. It just was always, and I say in past tense, I guess it is, but just enjoyable from that aspect of seeing that kind of, and I guess to try and go back to your question is, how do you keep doing it because I kept refining it and refining it. And, when I first started teaching it, I taught it just like I had at Michigan State. I'm not a trained educator. I have never had a class in my life about teaching. Nothing. I guess I lucked into the job at Owens.
I was going to ask you about that. How'd you go from being a student? Did you do anything, like you got your degree at Michigan State, and then after that, what?
We're ready for another story.
Hey, sure.
Yeah.
We're here all day.
Yeah.
Foley. We're here all day.
Well, of course, students would say, oh, God, here he goes. Yeah, because I tend to do that. And as I get older, I'm doing more and more of them. I keep going, where's Foley going this time? So when I graduated from Michigan State, I was actually already married to my wife, Janice. So she and I are still together. And when I graduated, the economy, this was 1982, so a long time ago, far away. The economy was in the tank. I wanted to be a grower. I wanted to go work at a big nursery, grow trees and shrubs, sell wholesale stuff.
Okay.
And that was that, or my backup was work at a private estate, maybe on the East Coast, like some big,
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Whatever. So that was my goal. Well, when the economy was like that, no nurseries were hiring. We literally were willing to look nationally. We were willing to go anywhere. We're both from Royal Oak, north of Detroit, but we were willing to go wherever so I could find this job. And they just weren't out there. So I'm about ready to give up, figuring out what do we do next. And there was this little folder in the horticultural office. The office is the hort department. And it would have job leads in it. If anybody sent in a letter looking for somebody, well, I would check this thing, weekly. I kind of finally gave up on it. And I went in, it was, I think, like winter, January, and I was going to graduate in March because I graduated a semester early. And there was a letter in there from somebody. It said, this gentleman is looking for, I won't say his name, he's long gone, but was looking for someone to come in and help him with the business. He has no children. He'd like to, maybe pass the business on, yada, yada. Well, holy crap. Are you kidding me? This is my dream.
Yeah.
I could go down there. I can work. I can buy this nursery from a guy and live my dream. And it's in Toledo, so it's not far from where we grew up in family.
Yeah.
So I came down, met with the guy, and he hired me, and I worked 7 days a week from 8 in the morning till dusk.
Oh.
He paid me $200 a week gross. I had to pay my own stuff. I had to pay everything. So I wasn't making any money, but I was working for my dream, right? This was going to be our future. And so did that for 1 year. I mean, I had to argue with the guy to get Christmas off. It was like, what are we doing on Christmas? We're sitting in the office looking at each other because it's just this little tiny podunk nursery, right? Do you know of any nurseries in Toledo? No, because it doesn't exist. It's just so. But it was whatever. He was, he was what he was. He's an old school dude, And so at the end of the year, I said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Blank, it's time that, we kind of get some paperwork and sign this and make it official."
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, I don't want to do that anymore."
No.
Yeah. And I said, "Well, you got my 2 weeks notice." So that was the end of that. And I come to find out years later, he had done that to one or two other people.
Oh, no kidding.
So the sweet little old man and his little old sweet wife making Spam for lunch and all this good stuff for us.
I was wondering why you weren't going to say his name, but that makes sense.
No, I mean, he, like I said, he's long gone. Anyways, so now I'm desperate. Okay, now I got no job again. And we got rent to pay. And at that time, Janice had started law school at UT. So I scrambled. A good friend of mine, when we went to Michigan State together, Dave Ehrman, he and I, he worked at, well, no, I had not. He did an internship at Anderson's the year I was working for Varney. And then the next year, they had opened up a full-time position, and Dave was interviewing for it. I didn't want to compete with him, so I went over to Al Johnson. Everybody in Toledo knows Al Johnson, at the Toledo Sylvania Anderson store, see if he needed, could hire me as a part-time worker or whatever. He sent me over to Mommy Anderson's. They did hire me as a part-time worker. And then I worked there for 7 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
I worked as a part-time person, did landscape jobs on the side, did all kinds of stuff, and then they hired me on full-time as a assistant buyer, actually. So I worked with Walt Errett, and we traveled around the country. We went to the East Coast, West Coast. Every year we'd take trips in the summer to go buy plant material for the next year. And that's where another plant, because the West Coast, they can grow all kinds of stuff that we can't. And we can, actually, because we're similar zoned, but they have this amazing soil and climate. And so dwarf conifers, it was all about, never learned much about, oh my gosh, my mind was on another level with dwarf conifers. So anyways, so I would travel with him, and then I managed the Mommy Andersons. So it was kind of a part-time gig. I was kind of part-time assistant buyer and part-time garden center manager at Mommy. I should say nursery manager, the outdoor area. Anyway, so I did that for a number of years. And then one of the other managers, a guy, Ed, I forget Ed's last name, at the Toledo store, at this time they built a new Toledo store, said, "Hey, did you hear that Owens just started a landscape program and they're looking for a teacher?" And I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay, well," and at the time I was actually starting to look for a little something to leave Anderson's, because when they hired me, the idea was that I was going to replace the buyer that was there. Well, he didn't retire and things didn't happen, and I was getting a little frustrated.
Sure.
So it was I was looking. I was offered one or two other jobs, and I didn't take them, thank God.
Yeah.
But then this thing popped up. Ed told me about it. We both interviewed for it, and I got it, and Ed didn't.
Wow.
So he told me. Otherwise, I never would have.
Yeah.
I never would have fallen into it.
Wow.
I fell into a dream, really. You know, I mean, because that was 35 years ago. And I've really, I mean, it's been a lot of work. It was tough.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
The college really did nothing. And I remember the first day I was hired in, I was a part of the business department to start with. And so I went to the chair, my boss, and I said, so I've never taught before. How, you know, so what's the syllabi? How do I do a syllabi? Whatever you think is best. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, should I have so many tests a semester? Should I, what, you know, whatever you think is best.
Do you think they would put a little parameters on this?
I mean, over time they did. I mean,
Sure.
over time, all of a sudden you had to have this, and this in your syllabi.
Yeah,
I mean, it was very rigid. But back then, you know, so I just took one from some other business class or something and said, okay, here we go. And, you know, it was kind of crazy. I mean, and actually for the first, I don't know how many weeks, I still worked at Anderson's. I told them, because they'd put me in to oversee another department for a little while that was having trouble. So I was kind of nursery and hardware, and I didn't want to leave them in a lurch. So I said, well, I'll stay here and keep, doing for a little bit. And that was, because I was creating classes. It's not like I inherited anything.
Yeah.
The classes didn't exist.
It's all brand new.
So I had to create Woody ID. I had to create plant science. I had to, and I didn't know how to do that. So
Here, one second. I got to
Yeah.
turn this heater off.
go for it.
My parents turned the heater on for me.
That's nice of
just
them.
to warm it
Just
up.
because it's cold down here.
Yeah.
We doing okay? Or
So,
we talking
oh no
too
no
much?
no! This is perfect. This is
Okay,
exactly what I want. So I do want to go back. When you were getting paid $200 a week,
Yeah.
what was your wife saying at this point? Because I know for my wife, like when I do this thing to do every month costs us money, right? Like I don't get paid to do this, and she's always behind me 100%.
Yeah.
So when you're getting paid not very much and working 7 days a week, and like what is your wife saying about this?
We were young, we got married really young and dumb. And so she was, we were all in. We're doing, we had no kids. We had no dogs.
Yeah.
We had no anything. It was just the two of us. She was going to law school and working 2 or 3 part-time jobs. So she was just as busy as I was.
Got it. Yeah.
We were both,
Just two ships, right?
and the other thing, the other thing she loved about it was working that much gets you really trim and fit. So I looked better back then than ever in my life.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You should have pictured that. Oh, look at that. That's when you were, and that's just because I was working my, what off.
As long as she
all
doesn't
the
say
time.
that's when I loved you the most.
Yeah. Don't ask her. No. Yeah. No.
Because that's a hard thing when you guys are
Right.
starting your life together, and
Right.
and also not whatever the money's whatever I would imagine but just not seeing each other.
Right.
It's difficult for a newly married couple.
Right. It was. Yeah. No. You know what? The harder part was having children.
Yeah.
I mean, because when I started at Owens, we just had Shaylin was probably 1 or 2 maybe. We had a newborn. So, and a dog then. By then we had a dog and we had 2 young children. And her job was, she was crazy. At this point, she's partnering, she's working at a firm. And so
Yeah.
and that was, and we had a house to maintain, whereas when we were first down here, we were in an apartment.
Yeah.
There's no lawn. There was nothing to care for. You just went in and went to bed, so those were tough times.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work as you
Yeah.
you know, right?
Yeah.
It's juggling stuff.
How does a plant lover be able to get that whatever feeling when you have an apartment? Because I know I had an apartment at one point, but I was working for Margie at the time, and we'd get plants every once in a while from customers. But
Right.
I'd go to my parents' house and plant them at my parents' house. But it was hard for me because like I want to
Right.
be working in the yard and doing stuff. But
Well, that was my job.
yeah,
I mean, I worked in the nursery all day. I was with plants, which, they weren't, we ripped out and burned more plants than anything at that place. Well, it was all a bunch of old Spirea and Forsythia, stuff that's old, and Forsythia still sells, but old Spirea and old, just a bunch of junk. We actually hired a guy to come in with a huge front end loader, rip stuff up and put it in a huge pile in the back, and we burned a bunch of it. And then we drive up to Michigan every day, or not every day, but once a week or whatever. He didn't even own a pickup, so I got him to buy a pickup. We'd go up there and dig a bunch of little plants out of these little nurseries up there. There were back then, a bunch of guys that worked in factories.
Yeah.
And their passion was plants. And so out back, they'd have this little 1 acre plot of little tiny, they'd buy transplants and put them in the ground of yews or pines, and then they'd sell them to people. And so we'd go up there and buy a bunch and dig them and put them in the back of the pickup, drive them back and plant them. And, that was, and then at Anderson's, I got my fill with plants there and traveling around the country. I mean, however, that being said, I did similar to what you did. I brought a couple things home from Anderson's, the dwarf conifers, that I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Because we would buy these really rare plants from the West Coast, from Isley Nursery out there, which was an experience in itself. But I planted a couple around the apartment.
Yeah.
By the front, walking in, I forgot all about that. Walking in, I planted this little dwarf conifer right to the right, walking in the front door, and I think I put something else on the left.
That's funny.
Oh, it was hilarious. When we bought our first house, we bought a little dump on Claxton. I call it 4 walls and a roof, and half the roof I had to replace. I gutted the whole. It just was crazy. So rebuilt the thing to make some money.
Yeah.
Back before flipping was a big thing, and but I had plants all over the property, and part of the sales contract was I had in there specific plants that I was able to take. I moved those to our new house out in Swanton.
I asked my realtor that when our first house was in Toledo, right by UTMC campus, and I had a bunch of plants out there, and I asked my realtor, I said, "Hey, can I take plants? Like, am I allowed to take plants?" He goes, not really, but if there's a couple that you want, then take them out. You know.
Yeah, that's what I did with. Yeah, I just took the specimens. A couple of key conifers and some Jap maples, and it was kind of funny.
You talked about those dwarf conifers when you saw those. I remember seeing something. I forget. It was we went to an arboretum possibly or something in Michigan. You took us
Hidden Lake,
and they had bonsai. I think that was where they had bonsai.
They did.
And ever since then, I am fascinated with bonsai. Like my TikTok is full of bonsai. Like I love it.
Okay.
And I was walking. We went to Sedona, Arizona a few weeks ago, and I was walking with my dad. Yeah. And they had rocks, and the tree, it was probably about this big, just like growing out of the rocks.
Right.
I told my dad, I've seen TikToks where people just take those
right.
and make them in bonsai because of what they're growing in. But bonsai is so fascinating to me.
Well, and that's the classic. That's what they would do in Japan is they'd go up into the mountains and find some little scraggly pine growing out of a crack of the rocks, chisel the rock away and take it home and pot it up. And that's how they could start. Because if you go to big arboretums, like if you go to the National Arboretum, they have an amazing bonsai collection. Oh, my God. And on each one of them, there's a plaque that'll say, potted in 1892. Estimated age at planting is, 35 years. So that they would estimate the age of that little pine growing in that rock at 35.
Yeah.
And then pot it up and then grow it for another 100 years. The oldest one they had there was, I want to say like 400 years old.
That's crazy.
It was a gift from,
that's wild.
It is wild. And it was big.
Yeah.
But it's a 400-year-old pine. It should be, 125 feet tall, but it's crazy. Yeah.
My favorite is when people do little forests of those. Those are really cool to have like groves of trees and stuff. One of these days, I told Andrea, my wife's like, one of these days I'm gonna do that. I'm so busy right now, but I love that. I love it so much.
I've been saying I want to get into that for a while too.
Well,
it hasn't happened, but I could now.
You're gonna be retired.
I could now. Yes. So we'll see. My property's enough to take care of. But no, you're right. It's a fascinating thing. That's Hidden Lake Garden is what you're thinking of.
Okay.
And they have the bonsai, but they also have probably one of the best dwarf conifer collections in the Midwest. Really, I mean, Chicago has a really nice one, but it's pretty nice.
Is it?
If you get, I mean, I'd highly recommend people to go up there. Beautiful hosta collection too, even though I guess the deer pretty much now are so bad they eat it down to the nub every summer. But we would go up there on our trip to Michigan State. I'd take you guys up for a day, and then on the way back, we'd stop at Hidden Lake Gardens real quickly because everybody wanted to get home by then. But it was like, okay, come on, give me a half hour. Let's just run around and,
Yeah.
go through the conservatory, go through the dwarf conifers, and drive the rest of it and go home. I was excited. They were all like, get me home.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember going. I always liked being able to go to those things. I was working full time. I could never go on to the, do they still call it? They don't call it Planet anymore, do they?
No, it's gone through 3 names. Way
Yeah.
back when it was ALCA, the American Landscape Contractors Association. Then it was, Planet? For you?
Planet, yeah.
Planet, yeah, Professional Land Care Network, something like that. And now it's, what is it? The National Association of Landscape. Now, yes.
Yeah.
And it's a student landscape competition.
Yes. So I never did it because I couldn't. But so I enjoyed like going there, or even going to, I think we went to what's the Arboretum in Toledo? The
Stranahan?
Stranahan, yeah. I'm going there because I think that might have been even when one of our tests were possibly too.
Yeah, we did a walking lab and a big quiz out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like doing that stuff because I didn't get it. I didn't even know these places existed. Like it's a cool thing to see, and especially as someone who literally flipped through the Owens catalog because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my 2 choices at the end of the flipping was landscape and turfgrass management and X-ray tech.
Oh,
those were my 2 choices.
All right.
And I picked landscape turfgrass management because I was like, well, I want to be outside.
Right.
I had no background in plants. I had nothing. I know I want to be outside, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
doing that.
Yeah, that's one of the keys for when I try and recruit students. Because I always joke I was the head cook and bottle washer. I did everything. Right. I had to recruit students. I had to develop the program from start. I had to do budget, whatever had to be done. Because the college didn't really do much. It was pretty much up to me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that was always that was always fun. But
so let's go back to when you're developing. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew you were there from the beginning. I just didn't know there was basically like no help. How'd you know? I guess you took stuff from Michigan State. I would imagine. Like here are the classes we had to have.
Oh
right?
yeah, no,
Right?
I my Woody ID class is basically what I had at Michigan State. I pretty much based it on that. I taught it differently, but it basically was 2 lectures a week and 1 walking lab. That's what we did. So the other classes I just kind of wing because a lecture's a lecture. You get a book, you pick a textbook, and you figure out chapter 1. You just start developing lectures. And of course, back then there weren't PowerPoints or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was just kind of standing up there yakking and maybe some overhead projection things. But yeah, no, it was different than just putting together PowerPoints.
Through the years of you, would you say 35 years of teaching? Was there ebbs and flows of like we're dipping in students or we're up in students, or has it always like that for you?
No, I mean,
I know when I was there, every class was full.
Yeah,
when I was there.
No, I mean at the peak, you were around the peak. Yeah. So I should have looked at the reunion we had. I don't know if you ever looked at the
yes
the thing on the wall that Janice, my wife, put that together.
Yeah.
But it literally listed the number of students in the program and the number of graduates.
Yeah.
In our peak years, we were like 110 to 120 students. Not all of them finished. A lot of people wouldn't. I mean, and regretfully, Woody ID was a class that, we used to call them weeder classes to weed people. I never called it that. But at Michigan State, there were weeder classes for certain.
It just happens. It just happens.
I knew tons of freshmen that were going to be veterinarians. Yeah, well, they weeded out 95% of those guys. They were gone by sophomore year. So, but Woody, just by nature, that's what it did because it was a tough class. And a lot of people like, what, Latin? What? Latin? I have to know Latin? No, you just got to know 2 little words. You don't have to know, you don't have to speak Latin. You just got to know 2 words. So, but no, it's that definitely, I guess the aspect of trying to get that developed and do that stuff was always tricky. Yeah.
What was your favorite part of everything? Because you developed it, you taught it, like all the trips, everything. Like what was your favorite part of any given year? I guess.
I think it's stuff like this.
Yeah.
It's coming back and seeing a graduate. What are you doing? Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And it's that reward. I don't know if you remember professional issues, but that's the class where that's probably, I was thinking about this morning on the drive over here. What was my second class? It was probably professional issues. And then that one, you had to go on interviews, you had to write a resume.
Oh, yes.
You had to do and that seems silly because it has absolutely nothing to do with plants. But the whole point of that class, not the whole point. I mean, the point was to try and get people ready, but I talk in that class, and a lot of classes or students, I should say, when I would have a conversation with maybe a student that was struggling, they're having a little problem. They're like, I'm done with this, blah, blah, blah. I can't do this. My thing was always, hey, it's not about this, it's about the attitude and effort was always my buzzwords. You may not remember it, but especially in professional issues, it's that you don't want to go on I don't want to go on an interview because I already have a job. Who cares? You're not going to have that job forever. You're going to have to go and get another job. And so you got to prepare to do good interviews. You can have all the knowledge and be the best person in the world, but if you can't interview and you don't get the job, then you lost your opportunity. Remember, we'd put up on a pedestal, we'd say, this is where you want to be in 5 years. So what do you have to do to get there regarding education and experience and work ethic and all these things to get you to here? And it's your attitude and effort as much as anything else is going to get you there. So if you're struggling with a class or this test sucks or I'm not, it's like it's not about that test. The attitude and the effort you put into everything every day, right? Regarding your job, regarding your relationships, regarding raising kids or dogs or pets, every day that you do that is a reflection of who you are. And if you always do that, put your best foot forward, you're going to succeed. It's not about this bloody test you're taking tomorrow. That's insignificant. But your attitude and effort toward the class or toward that test is important. And that's going to guide you through life. Not this. Who cares about a bloody test in a class? You're not, I mean, it might be important. I have to pass it. I get that. But if you have the right attitude and effort every day to things you do, what the idea, as hard as it is, if you just follow the process, do what I'm asking you to do. Don't get an attitude that it's going to suck. Get an attitude that, okay, I'm going to show this dude that I got this. I can do this. And when those people achieve that, that was me. For me, that was my satisfaction. Or seeing them afterwards and what they're doing. And again, do I care if they're in the industry? I don't care what they're doing. As long as they're happy and successful and happy with what they're doing, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in horticulture.
Yeah.
That's not important to me. I love when they are. That's great. But if they're not, then, like I said, they're happy where they're at. They've achieved what they wanted to do, and then good. That's good, And hopefully I was a little part of that.
Oh,
More the attitude and the effort than, again, the knowledge. It's not about what trees you know and don't know.
Yeah.
Does that matter to you now? Not really.
No, it did at one point. But
it
not
did at
now.
one point,
Yeah.
but right. But as you go up, it's other things,
Yep.
right? So it didn't. I mean, again, if that got you started with what is my attitude, not just this class or this test or this tree, but overall, my ability to lead, supervise, motivate. Those are the things that are going to get you places. It's not knowing which maple you're looking at. I mean, that might impress people because I love students when they come in. Oh, my mom and dad are so excited because I've ID'd all the plants on the on our property, and that's awesome because again, that's what I mean by this. Whoosh, wow, look at what I learned. Now I know 8 maples. I thought a maple was a maple, and now I know this many. Or I know that expansion that class offers that other ones don't. Yeah, I've heard of plant science before. I know photosynthesis. I mean, that's maybe not soil science, but the other ones. I mean, you've learned a little somewhere.
All the time. Yeah, all the time. And to go back to what you're saying, like, oh yeah, someone stops by or says hello or sends you a message or whatever. I love that part, especially about coaching. It's like someone I coached 7 years ago, and I'm just walking down the grocery store and they're like, hey, coach, and I turn around and I'm like, oh man, like
you grew up.
Yeah, that and they they remember me. They thought enough to that was a good enough coach for them to say hello to me, that kind of stuff. One of my favorite days of the year would always go to the plant sale. Like I loved going to the plant sale because I felt like that was my one opportunity, and I'm sure there's other times, my one opportunity to give something back to where I'm at now, like it started there. So like to be able to give something back and obviously get plants and stuff, which I love doing that too. But like to see you and to talk about the program, and then obviously you always ask me questions about me and just to connect for one day, because everyone lives busy lives. But I knew I can count on that day to be like, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm gonna give them some cash for some plants that they grew and
Right.
And
Well,
go
we
forward.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because we, between the plant sale and landscape jobs, we've taken a lot of students to a lot of different competitions.
Mhm.
So I got to remember to show you the back of my shirt before I leave if you haven't seen it.
Oh, I bought one.
Did you get one?
I
The
bought
rest in peace?
I bought a shirt and I bought a hoodie.
And so did I.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell. I want to post something on Facebook because the last time they can do it is tomorrow night at like 11:59. So,
Oh, okay.
Tell them that, hey, you don't want to come to the next get together we have and not have on your RIP shirt, right? You got to represent.
That I was thinking about that this morning. That landscape. I don't know if you called it you said a get together, but I don't remember what you called it. But that was such a good time. Like
The reunion.
Yes, it was so fun. And then to even in some cases, I was like, oh, I know you. I didn't know you went through this program. Like,
Did you run into something like that?
a couple
That's
people
cool.
like that. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, and
Right.
it was a cool thing. And I'm sure you don't think about it this way, but you are the catalyst for that. Like, you are the reason everyone's there. Like that I don't think, and I'm sure there's a number list of why people are there. Number one, probably on everyone's list is, well, Foley is the reason we're here, right? Foley is the reason we had this program, and he's the reason we're friends. In some cases, maybe this person was in my wedding, or this person, is a real good friend of mine now because we got to go to the Scent Show and we partied when we probably shouldn't have partied,
Yeah.
like all that stuff. But the center of that is you, and I hope you realize that too. Like, it is so important. What you did and what you have done for many people, not only in the Toledo area, but way outside of this Toledo area.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily think about it that way, but that was a blast. I was amazed that 120
Yeah.
graduates came back. When I look now, I don't do Facebook that often, but when I look at that photo of the reunion,
Yeah.
it's like, damn, that's pretty good. Look at that. And,
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was disappointed after was I didn't really get a chance to go around and talk to people, and I felt like a lot of people probably didn't have a good time because I never mingled with, we didn't get, or Matt, it just because
That was the
we had
nature
these
of it, though.
plans. Well, we had these plans for these fun things, and then of course the whole thing started with no microphone. Oh man, was that a disaster? So, but again, so a good example of improvising, right? Do you remember what we tried to do? I don't think anybody does because they couldn't hear us, but we actually tried. So we had no microphone, right? So, and the room was a stupid.
It was really long.
Well,
too.
and it was shaped like a U or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you could stand in the middle and see everybody, but if you were at one end, you couldn't see the people at the other end, and vice versa. It's the stupidest designed room I've ever seen. But so I would scream to one side, "Hey, we're really glad you got here," and then Matt would turn to the other side and say, "Hey, we're really glad you
I
got
do
here."
remember that.
Remember? And I would scream over here something, and he would say the same thing, and it was like, "Oh my God, this is not working." My wife's looking at me like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "What else are we gonna do? We got this
Yeah.
whole thing planned. We got to get going. We want to, Oh man, thank God they got the mics figured out eventually. But that
Yeah.
was, but improvising 101, right? Okay, what can we do?
Yeah.
Scream to both sides.
Yeah.
And then even when we had the mics, they weren't the greatest. But back to my point was, we had those little programs. I did my thing. Who's this? Who's that? And Matt did his trivia thing.
Yep.
And by the end of it, it was like, it's over. And so I think a lot of people just sat there saying, well, what am I doing? But I'm glad my point was, I'm glad to hear that you said that you found it fun and had a good time. Because I question whether some people did or not. But a few people have told me that it was neat because they did see people that maybe they hadn't seen.
Look, I'm sure
for a while.
I'm sure there's going to be people that were like, well, it was cool, but I probably won't go back. But there's going to be way more people if you ever have it again. You're still going to have.
Well, needless to say, it would never be anything official like that. But no, I would love to have, periodically just to get together. Hey, let's meet at ABC, restaurant has a room in the back, and just bring your family and let's just, have, if you want food, you get food. If you want a drink, get a drink. If you just come and say hey, then come and say hey, know. But I would love to keep kind of having those, especially with the family part of it, because I'd like to see people's kids and where they're at, because again, after 35 years, I mean, the fact that, Amy Stone's about ready to retire, I think. And, she was one of my first students. So like, wait a minute, how does that work that now I'm going to beat her to it. But, things like that. And or their kids are, married and all that kind of stuff going on. It's pretty crazy. So I'd love to try and keep that little thing going. Like, again, that reunion we had realized was completely paid for by the club.
Oh, okay.
With funds from the plant sale
Yeah.
that you supported so well all through the years, and from other landscape jobs. It was a $15,000. That was like a wedding,
that's
for
crazy.
God's sake. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was all club money.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that like whatever support you get is able to do those kind of things or take people to the shows and that kind of stuff. You were you mentioned kids and stuff, and I don't know if you remember. We were in Woody ID, and you're like, hey, I know it's 3 days a week, and sometimes you're gonna miss stuff. Just let me know, like if you're, God forbid, there's a funeral or you get married or whatever. And I raised my hand. You're like, what's up? I go, I got married. I got to go on a honeymoon. He was like, oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I always think about like I got married I think my first year there, and then my last year is when we had my son.
Okay.
So like I think about how hard school is,
Right.
on top of working. Like I tell people all the time, like I had to work full time. It took me 4 years to get my 2-year degree. I got married. My wife had our baby, like all these things. And, but there's some people who would be like, sorry, you got to deal with it. And you're able to be like, well, we'll work around it. There's nothing too serious here that we can't figure out,
Well, and again, that's the life lesson of school.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's not IDing the trees. It's not understanding photosynthesis. It's not, it's handling all of that.
Yeah.
Like you did. That's why you are where you are now, because you were able to do it. You didn't say, screw this, I can't do it anymore. You did it. You figured it out. Do what you got to do, right? Great mantra. Do whatever you got to do. Because I got a wife, I got a new kid, I got a job, and I got this bloody class. Well, because it teaches you later to now I'm done with classes, so life seems a little easier.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so now I can have another kid, or I can, it's all life lessons as far as I'm concerned. That's one problem with, not a problem, but, going to school at home is that aspect of, for me, when I went away to school, you grow up a lot.
Yeah.
You grow up a lot because all of a sudden there's no one there to kick you to say, hey, don't you got a test tomorrow? It's up to you, what you do Friday night or Sunday night or whatever before the test Monday. But whatever. I mean, it's still, like I said, it's still all life lessons, and you're a good example of that by saying, "Hey, I had this and this and this all going on while I was there." So, by the way, you're not the only person that took 4 years. I mean,
yeah.
Oh
I'm
man,
sure.
I mean, a lot, because a lot of our students, that is a difference though. They work, they may have family, they have, there's a lot of crap going on in community college, and that whole group of students.
That's how I always tell people when I went. There was probably more non-traditional students than kids right out of high school.
Yep.
But we definitely had that mix. And I think that's what made it so fun for me in some of those classes.
Right.
Is because there was people that were in their 50s, all the way down to 18-year-olds.
Yes.
And it was like, man, we gotta intermingle here and figure this out.
I loved it as a teacher, and then sometimes it was a struggle because, but I liked it because I could sometimes lean on the older students to kind of help the younger ones understand that, hey, this is not that hard. I mean, life is a lot harder than this one class or one test. And as you get older, you'll understand that. And you were one of those examples where, hey, man, I just got married, I got a kid, and that hopefully the younger people look at it and say, oh, okay, if he can do it, if Lorenzo can do it, then I can do it.
I remember one time we went to the Scent Show in Columbus.
Yep.
And I think I was working with Margie then. And because I remember I was rooming with like 3 high school kids who I got along with pretty good, and I went to the hall where the expo or whatever, they had all the stuff out there.
Yeah, the convention
I love swag, so I was just grabbing all kinds of stuff. And
so you would have loved going to the competition, man. Lots and lots of swag. Okay, anyway, so you're going around Scent Show.
So then I came back, it was over, and we were going to go out to a bar or something with Steve and Margie and some other people. And I come back to our hotel room, and it's 9 p.m., lights are out. These high school kids had too many sodas and were done. It was like night. I was like, "What is happening right now?" And I went out and it was such a good night though, because I remember I don't know if Steve remembers, but we played darts till like 3 a.m.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Where?
There was some bar like that we were able to walk to.
Yeah, I bet it was the Barley's, right across the street almost.
It was it was really it was small.
They had darts. Yep, nope, it was Barley's. Yeah,
that sounds familiar.
I used to for years. So when we would go down there, I would take the students. I had the whole thing planned out, right? We'd go and do the show and meet with different vendors, and we'd go to there were conferences, the things you'd go to learn something.
Yeah.
And then, God, I forget the days because I had it all planned out. I was gone for like 3 days because I had to go down, like, I'm just going to say Tuesday, set up my booth, yada, yada. The students would come down on Wednesday. We'd have our whole day Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, a lot of the students would go home, or some might stay.
Yeah.
But then I would go Wednesday night at about 7 and meet alumni at Barley's.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
But, 3, 4, 5 would meet, and we'd hang out there generally for a while.
That's probably what it was, because we stayed out late, I remember, and then I was up ready to go, and those guys were having a hard time in the morning, getting ready to go to the classes and the
lessons learned, or get back to school.
Yeah.
Because then I'd leave Barley's and we go up to the bar on 2 and at the Hilton.
Oh, okay.
At the host hotel, yeah, and I'd usually meet some people there as well, so that was always fun.
That was a good time. But tell me about specifically this last show you went to, because again, 2 staff members, Haley and Sally, were there, and I saw the video of you guys on stage. And I talked to Sally about it. He goes, "Yeah, Foley, I don't think didn't want to do it." He goes, "I'm just going to turn my back so they can see the back of my shirts."
No, it's not that didn't want to do it. So, are we telling the story or what?
Yeah, go for it. You can tell whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we normally have these shirts, and the front has, where we're competing, Owens, LTM, yada, 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 Colorado State in the year. And on the back, we have all our sponsors, because I would ask companies to donate money to help pay for us to go.
Yeah.
Well, this year I told the students, I said, so we don't have any sponsors this year. We didn't need them. We had enough money in the bank. And I said, so you want to do something different with the back of the shirt? I said, think about it. You guys, I knew Haley and Sally, they're creative. I said, think about, see what, if you come up with any ideas, blah, blah, blah. So it was maybe 5 days or a week later, and I'm like, guys, you got any ideas? Because I got to get going on these shirts, because they hadn't given me anything. And they never listen. So that's specifically to those 2, by the way. But I heard somebody back there, they kind of were mumbling or whatever, and somebody said, well, maybe, I think it was Haley, I'm not sure, but said, maybe like a rest in peace thing or something. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I loved it. I thought it was so fun.
Yeah.
What the hell? Let's just go for it.
Yeah.
And so then we just kind of went from there and got the tombstone, and we asked the company that does them to kind of mock up some stuff, and we gave them the words. And they put it all in. And it turned out really great. So back to the cheer, right? So the reason we won the cheer was Sally, really, because she started an intro before we did our actual cheer. She started off by we all stood up, and she started with, and I forget she would know exactly what she said. She was on her phone, but something like, this is our last year at the competition. The college has canceled our program. And you could just see people in the room go,
Yeah.
oh. And it was, it was kind of moving, because it was like, wow, the people were really sad for us.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So she did her I thank NELP and all the sponsors and yada, yada, yada. And then we did our cheer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get a standing ovation. And it's like, oh no, this is, not good. I'm not. So when we went up on stage, right, to perform it again, because they picked the top 4 schools, like March Madness, they pick the top 4, and you go up on stage now and you do your cheer one more time.
Okay.
Well, Sally did not do her intro thing, and that's where I turned around, because first of all, I really didn't want to face all those people doing our cheer. I knew my voice was really bad that night, because the whole thing sounds like we're being murdered. But I kind of thought, you know what, I'm going to turn around. First, because I don't want to look at all these people, but more importantly, I want to show them the back of our shirt, because they haven't seen it. And again, there was an audible when I turned around. People look. I think they might have had a camera on us or something, so people could actually read it. And it was like, oh wow! So I thought, no, this is perfect. So I'll be the lone beetle, turning my back on the group or whatever. Because was there 4? No, there were 5 of us up there. Yeah, there were 5 of us up there with Michelle. No, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 5. No, it worked great. It was awesome. Yeah. So
have over the years, was there like a favorite place you went that you enjoyed for these competitions? They all seem like cool places to go.
Maybe the first time we went to BYU, just because I hadn't been there before, it is gorgeous there. It's up on this plateau. The campus, you're surrounded by mountains and snow, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But no, it's gotten to a point now where it keeps going back to the same places.
Okay.
Because some schools want to do it and some don't. It's a lot of work to host that
I would
thing.
imagine,
It's huge.
yeah.
I mean, this year there was the 2nd or 3rd largest ever, 741 students. from like 55 or 60 different colleges and universities from all over the country.
Yeah.
And Canada. We can't forget Canada. There's a big shout out to Canada this year as our international, competitor, which is a great guy. I forget his name. He's a great guy. Met him when he first brought people kind of, 10, 15 years ago. And he kind of latched onto me the whole week, went around. And what's the deal? And so I kind of, took him under my wing, and they're great. They're so fun. They're classic Canadians. They come in with their Canadian hats and flags. But no, yeah, I don't know that there's a favorite, but there's definitely some of them that I wish I could forget.
Oh, can you tell those stories? Or is that another podcast?
Yeah, that might be another podcast. There's a couple things, I always joke, let's say, yeah, well, I guess I want to bring everybody back this time, because sometimes there's been occasions when I would rather not have. I won't say any names,
Sure.
But some of them may know who they are. Other ones might not even know it because they were whatever. Nope, we won't go down that path. Nope.
Maybe when you're 8 years removed, we can talk more about it.
Yeah, whatever. For the most part, though, considering you're taking, well, like you said, it's not a bunch of just 18-year-olds. It's people that, I used to try to keep a pretty tight line on people.
Yeah.
I would go to not the host hotel because I knew there'd be a lot of other college. I would go to a hotel a little bit away just so that some of that, because I just didn't, and actually, this was way before this competition. I used to take the students to what was called the Mid-Atlantic. It was a little tiny competition, maybe 8 or 10 schools. It was much more horticultural. They actually did ball and burlapping and pruning.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It was
Wow.
really. They did Woody ID and stuff too.
Yeah,
but it was really scaled down. And I would take people out there, and that's where I learned how Long Island got its name. We drive through New York City. This is really cool. Da 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 da. We get on Long Island, and we had to go to Suffolk Community College.
Uh-huh.
And Suffolk is like at the other end of Long Island.
Okay.
And we're driving, and like 2.5 hours later, I'm like, what? Again, this is pre-GPS. This is not, there's nothing that says you're...
MapQuest directions printed out?
we were, back then it was all paper stuff. And it might tell you the miles in between, but you just look at it and say, it's an island. And then we go to the end of it. And 3 hours later, whatever. But no, I think, anyways, back to so I remember it was one of those trips. And again, I had younger, but older, legal people too. But me kind of being the daddy thing. This one woman, she was older. She just disappeared.
What?
Disappeared by herself. And I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. I don't remember where we were.
Yeah.
But so I'm driving around in the bloody van trying to find this person. And literally one of the other students, I think, found her in a bar. Just drinking away, and it was not good. Away. But she's like, I'm an adult. I'm 40 some years old. I'm like, I get that, but I got it.
I'm still responsible.
You're under my umbrella here.
Yeah.
As from the college standpoint.
Yeah.
I can lose my job. So whatever it was, and I know people did stuff. I know all that stuff went on.
Oh, sure.
But whatever. This was one of the first ones, I guess. And again, it was a single female. No, again, it was a while ago, but that kind of stuff. I don't care how old you are.
Yeah.
That's just not probably smart to do. Come to learn later that she's had a lot of experience and stuff. So again, another story. But whatever. At the time, it was kind of. There's been episodes.
How I'm curious on that particular one. How long ago was that about? Do you think?
Oh, whoa. 25 years.
There was, and the only reason that I just got done watching this documentary on Netflix about this. I guess he was a serial killer, but it was about that time in that area.
Great, yeah, great.
But luckily,
don't think I'd be here with you today if that would have happened.
Luckily,
no, I think I would have lost my job.
You're right. But, but when you started talking about that, I was like, wait, this is all like when you said Suffolk County, like that was a part of Long Island and all that stuff on the documentary. But that's what I was like.
The Long Island Killer? Was that?
I think I don't remember what it was, but
oh my gosh,
it was something like that.
Yeah, I'm glad it's that much later, and you can tell me that story because I don't remember that at the time.
It was a good documentary.
Wow. Yeah, well, whatever.
Well, his MO was prostitutes, so I think you're okay. I think you're... Oh no! All right, we'll move on.
Did I tell you she used to work at
we'll move on.
famous what was his name? Hustler.
Oh no.
Didn't know that either.
And she just loved plants, apparently, huh?
Her second calling. She was getting too old for the hustler
Her
thing.
second calling.
She was getting too old for the hustler.
Oh, wow, Foley.
Yeah, I know. So too much
Hey,
information.
no, you have.
Sorry,
No, that's a beautiful story.
we're past the legal, right?
Yeah, you're good. That's
I didn't say her
25 years
name
ago.
or
No, you
anything.
didn't. You didn't. No, you good. You didn't give
I
any.
might have actually. I don't know
You
if I
didn't
remember her
describe her or
name.
nothing?
I might have washed that away.
Yeah.
Not enough to remember. I remember
Sometimes
the story.
you have to. Sometimes you have to.
Yeah. There's some other ones that I wish I could.
That'll haunt you forever. Yeah.
So, but that for me, that's all. It was part of it, and nothing bad ever happened.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be talking, different things, but nothing ever did.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
good.
God.
Yeah.
So, that's good.
Yeah.
And hopefully some of them had good memories.
Yeah. Oh, I bet they did.
Yeah, I mean,
bet
I've
they
heard,
did.
a few of them. Oh, yeah, the trip. Again, I don't know what all that meant. It wasn't the
It was
competition.
the greatest time of my life.
It wasn't the competition part of it.
The competition? No, I don't give a shit about that.
No. Well, for a lot of schools and some students, that it was a chance to go party. And we had some of those. And especially around that time because we were big then. You graduated in 11, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So we were pretty big between like 10 and 15 or so. That's when Matt was there, Matt Ross. That's when we had all three programs. So we had the landscape program, golf course management, or golf course athletic field, and then the urban agriculture.
Yep.
So we were pretty peaked then. I mean, at that point we had, Matt was full-time, which is the only time I had a full-time instructor. All the rest have been part-time or adjuncts.
Yeah.
And at that point it was me, Matt, and probably at least 12 adjuncts.
Oh, really?
I was supervising. Yeah, no, I mean, it got to be, when you talk about big classes, I mean, Woody ID, we used to have like over 40 in the lecture and 3 walking labs.
That's crazy.
And I did 2 of them and Matt did 1. We had 2 plant sciences with 2 lectures and 3 labs. We had 2 soil sciences with 2 lectures and 2 labs.
I always remember my soil science teacher, Craig
Everett.
He was. I remember walking in. I was like, man, this dude's big.
He's a tall dude.
Yeah.
He still taught it for me last fall.
Did he really?
He wanted out a couple years ago, but I asked him. He was so nice. I asked him to come back, because the program was canceled. So when I announced my retirement last summer, I told the school, I said 24-25 is going to be my last year.
Yeah.
And within about a week, they said, well, we're going to cancel the program, which I anticipated that.
Yeah.
I've known for 3 years that when I go, it's going to probably happen. So I've been preparing. Like Sally, she was my last new student.
Okay.
And so I told her and Gage and somebody else that I knew were going to be graduating soon that like last fall, not fall of 24, but fall of 23, I revised the whole schedule of classes so they could take second year classes, mainly landscape construction, a year early.
Okay.
And then last fall, I knew I wouldn't have any classes because of landscape construction primarily. But so Craig taught soils. I had Michelle taught herbaceous plants, and then Sharon taught on landscape graphics. So I literally retired September 1st.
Okay.
Officially.
Yeah.
And didn't work all last semester. I actually couldn't. The state retirement system doesn't allow you for 60 days. You can't work.
Oh, okay.
So, but then I came back in January to teach the last couple students, Sally, Haley, and Gage. They're going to graduate this May. I came back to make sure because I told them I'll make sure you finish your classes because I doubt the college could have found part-time instructors for those classes. Through the years I struggled finding them. It's always been hard, and I have contacts. They don't. You know what I mean?
And they probably don't care.
No, regretfully they don't.
Yeah,
they do not at all, and that's the shame of it. And I told my students like, no, we're going. It's just to me, I just wouldn't let it go that way.
Yeah.
So,
well, it sounds like you is as much as it sucks that it's not going to be around.
Right.
It's ending in the best way possible.
That's how I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
May. I'm done. The program's done. My last 3 graduates have completed everything. Boom, bam.
Yeah.
We're good. I can't get disappointed about it. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? And there's no way, I can't imagine anybody else could revive it because I've been trying,
Yeah, if you can.
I mean, I haven't the last couple years because I've known this was coming.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things I had to do. So all these years I recruit myself to college really hasn't done much. So I would go to schools, I would go to events, I'd go to whatever. And usually I didn't talk much about the program. If some teacher gave me 45 minutes in a classroom, I'd talk the first 30 about, so what do you think you want to do? So what do you like? What are you passionate about? What, blah, 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 blah. And then maybe we talk a little bit about going to college and whether, what you would do. And one of the things you alluded to it, you like working outside, you like getting rewarded with what you've done. Then and then I would lead into the landscape program, because then this is for you. You're outside. At the end of the day, you can look back and say, wow, look at that. It looks amazing. And I did that.
Yeah.
That personal satisfaction. So anyways, would do that for all those years. So the college canceled the program last summer, and 2 guys, somehow or another, they didn't close the classes so people couldn't enroll. Two new people enrolled in classes. And they know that I don't think I told them, I said, there's 2 people in this class and they shouldn't be there, because these class, we put them in the schedule. They put them in the schedule because I guess they had to, but they didn't close the program.
Okay.
And so they got into these class. They took Woody ID and plant science, and they're like, I'm like, you got to call these people and let them know. A couple weeks later, you got to call these people and let them know. They didn't. So I called them.
Yeah.
And for the first time in 35 years, I'm trying to talk people out of my program in my industry.
God.
That was so hard. Oh my God.
I bet.
Like, one of them wasn't too out. The other one was like, well, no, because theoretically, my boss said this when he saw it. He said, well, we'll just have to offer the program for 2 more years so they can finish. Because technically, you're supposed to, once you close a program, you have to offer it until the students in it complete it.
Oh, got it.
Now, not longer than 2 years,
Yeah.
but because theoretically they're supposed to do it in 2 years.
Yeah.
But that's a state thing, I think. So he was like, well, I guess I'm like, no, I'm not coming back and teaching them. And I just knew that they wouldn't find, it would be a joke.
Yeah.
And I don't want the last 2 people that would go through the program to badmouth it and say, this program is garbage at Owens, blah, 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 because their teachers all suck. So literally, I'm talking them out of it. It was so hard.
Yeah.
I'm standing in my living room with this kid. I talked to him twice because he was determined. And I think he might have known that, well, they can offer it right. They have to offer it right. And I'm like, yeah, but it's
not going to be what you think.
No.
Yeah. Especially
all those years of trying to.
I just want to say, working so hard to get people in there and having to tell people no.
Now, that being said, I never tried I always felt like I was super honest with any, I never told them you're going to get rich. I never told them it's easy.
Yeah.
I never, the classes can be hard and this industry can be hard, but there can be a lot of personal satisfaction.
And there's a lot that degree can, whether you use 10% of it or 20 or 100, like there's a lot of different things you can do with that. And that, I think that's what was good is I think people, when I was there, you did horticulture or you did turf.
Right.
So that was the 2 major tracks. But then after that, like the jobs I got through Owens job fair. It was with Margie.
Right.
I remember her telling me, she's like, one of the main reasons I remembered you and wanted to hire you is because you wore a tie. And I was like, yeah, I was told to wear a tie. I was told to dress up and look good, look presentable.
Little things.
And that's what she said. And so I started there with learning. They were my internship. Went to Dana with Eric Hupp.
Okay, you were at Dana.
Yep.
All right.
I was there for 4 years, and that was also part of my internship. And then ended up at UT for 7 years. I did irrigation. Never once took an irrigation class. Never knew nothing about irrigation. And I was like, I know how to change heads. They're like, all right. And I slowly learned. I learned that there are good contractors and bad contractors. Right.
Irrigation's
So
that's a nest.
One I've always stuck with the past 10 years is Marco at Foreman Irrigation. He taught me everything. And in some cases, I was like, hey, Marco, there's this issue. And he would be there, tell me how to fix it, show me how to fix it. I would fix it. Wow. And then I don't know what the bill was. I didn't pay the bills, but I would basically taking work away from him. But he knew when there was things that I couldn't do, I'd call him all the time, 100%. Right. But I was there for 7 years, did irrigation and moved on to the Metro Parks, and now I'm in a leadership role, which I don't hardly ever use any of my horticulture stuff because that's not my job anymore.
It's a whole different thing now.
Yep. But we have people that know that kind of stuff, and so it just like going back to your effort and attitude, it takes you to different places, and if you want certain spots, now I have staff members who only want to be a frontline staff, and I tell them, great, we're going to make you the best horticulturist or the best park technician or the best park maintenance that you can be. Yep. And that's my job to help you do that, right? So, but I love where I'm at, and and I'm glad I picked LTM and not X-ray tech.
Me too.
It worked out really, really well for me. So I appreciate it. And I know, towards the end of my school, I was a pain in the ass because of my capstone. That was a nightmare, and I'm sure it was a nightmare for you. But you helped me. We figured out a way to get through it.
Yeah.
So I will forever appreciate you for that, because that was a difficult time. More for you than me.
And
probably.
that class, that was one of those classes where now we haven't offered that now for probably it hasn't been a requirement for probably 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Because we had to reduce load. So like all the summer classes where we went to Michigan State and Hidden Lake Garden, those have been gone now for like 10 years. So yeah, we had to cut the credit. The state wanted all the programs to have less credit hours.
Oh, okay.
So they were easier to achieve. So anyways, that class is gone, capstone. That was one of those love it or hate it. For both the students and for me, because some of them were like, oh, yeah, I'm going to get into bonsai, or I'm going to get into, and it's like, go learn everything you can about it. And they'd be all excited. And then the other ones were like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? And then they pick some subject that I don't want to, I don't want to do this. And what was yours again?
I did 3. I changed. It was like 3 different things. And at one point you're at the end, you're like, all right, you sat down with me, you're like, all right, you've done 3 different things. Let's see what we have here. And then I think you gave me credit because of these. Enough was done in these things where it was okay. I think you were just like, I'm tired of this. Let's get through.
Let's be done. Yeah. Well, but I mean, I guess I probably gave you a lot of credit for just keep trying.
Yeah.
Rather than putting in some, because some students would just have this pathetic thing at the end. And then, like I said, other ones were amazing. Heck, we had one guy, he designed a whole golf course. It was hilarious. And other people it was cool. So as I'm cleaning out my office, right, I'm now cleaning it out, I'm finding all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I found a box the other day, and it was pre-U. It was like the first decade of interns, where it had all their agreements, where they worked. Remember, you had to fill out that little agreement, your name and information, the employer's name and information, all this stuff. And then the things that are going to be achieved for the employer and for the student and all this stuff. So found files for like the first 10 years on all those, which was a throwback.
Did you ever find a test of like, he did turn that test in?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Test, I only keep test for a year.
Okay.
However, I have every grade book going back.
Oh, really?
Going back to 1990. Wow. So when somebody tells me, or says, hey, actually, I got to look a name up. Gage told me about some guy, and I got to look, because I don't remember him. I don't remember the name, and I can't put a face with it. And generally, if students don't finish, I don't remember them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if they only took 1 or 2, Woody, then I don't remember them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the ones that finished or were there for, like most all of them.
Yeah.
Again, more throwbacks. I keep pulling stuff out from the competitions where we would sign all the students that went. We would steal a sign from one of the events after the event was over. We'd take it and everybody'd sign their name on it and stuff. And I can, I know most all of them. Again, if they finished,
Yep.
A couple of them was like, that was a one and doneer or something, But no, yeah, the capstones. I have a couple boxes of capstones too.
Yeah.
From people. So I got to really figure out. I keep bringing stuff home. My wife's like,
yeah.
Is this really that important? And it's like, well, no, but I don't know if I'm ready to get rid of it. Her suggestion for the grade books was to burn them all. And I said, well, that's not a bad idea. I mean, just kind of, rather than just throw them in the garbage, let's let them go with a bang.
You can burn them all.
Yeah. Or I could use them for, some blackmail on people. I might say, look at this grade you got in this class, Lorenzo. No.
You can burn them all. Take a little urn and put R.I.P.
the ashes.
R.I.P. LTM and have a little tiny urn with.
That's not a bad idea. That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Takes up a lot less room than a big old box.
Yes, yeah.
And weighs less. That's a great idea.
I think it'd be cool to have like those signs that people have signed, like hanging up somewhere too. And I'm a pack rat though, so I like saving things. I have in case I need them. My kids have not used baby formula in forever, and I have probably a dozen formula containers because they're good containers with lids. So I have those just in my attic.
Ooh.
don't know if my wife knows.
They get that hot in the summer and cold in the winter. I don't check the expiration date on those. Otherwise, my wife.
No, just empty.
They're empty.
Because I put things in it. Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's storage. Oh, well then, heck yeah, I use all kinds of stuff for storage. I thought you meant they still had formula in
No,
them.
I liked them too because the lids are connected, so it's not one of those you can lose it. Like, where's the lid for this thing? They just flap open and then they're perfect.
They're post my
Yeah.
my-
No metal tins with plastic lids. Those are gone.
Right. Okay. Those I remember.
Yeah.
Yep. Those I remember. That's funny. No, I've been finding all kinds of stuff. The other night I was cleaning in design class because they're working and I'm starting to clean up all the stuff because I do have a lot of stuff. And I found, and I kind of knew they were there, I guess, but I kind of forgot about them.
Yeah.
So they're on pieces of white cardboard that are probably 12 by 18 inches. Weed specimens.
Oh, really?
Pressed and with plastic over the top.
Yeah.
And down at the bottom corner, it's got the name, the common name, the scientific name, my name, and the year 1980
Oh my gosh.
when I collected them at Michigan State.
1980.
I used to use them as, for teaching tools.
Yeah.
Because they were awesome. They're still awesome specimens.
Wow.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah. What else did I find from? I found my little flip. I've got a 5x7 little flip, or whatever you want to call it.
Like a Rolodex?
Well, no. Well, yeah, I got that too, but like a binder, I'll say. But it's
Okay.
just a little flip thing, and it had all because I used to teach the lab for Woody ID at Michigan State, and it had all the plants in the order of my walks that I would. They were labeled.
Okay.
Week
okay.
1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. For when I'd take students on campus for walks. It was kind of funny. That was a fun one. But,
I would imagine there's there's a lot of stuff you got rid of in 35 years, but all the stuff like that and the things like it is. I don't remember how big your office is, but there's probably not a lot of room in there.
so again, my classroom has a lot in it.
Yeah.
And then Rossford High School rented part of Owens. I think it was just pre-COVID.
Oh, because they were rehabbing.
They were
the building.
building right.
Yeah.
So when they did that, I had to clean out my classrooms or put everything away and lock it. So whatever, in case there was any issues, because they used my room and the soils lab next to us. And so I got an extra office next to me
Oh, really?
that's full of crap.
Just storage.
I'm sorry. That's full of stored
Memories.
things.
Memories.
Oh boy. Yeah, I haven't gotten into that one yet.
Oh.
So when you were in Woody, it was PowerPoints or was it slides?
No, it's PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because not too far before you, right? All those classes were on slides, 35 millimeter slide
yeah.
carousels. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? So
I think it was PowerPoint.
it
Yeah, it had
probably
to be.
was.
It had to
probably
be.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know when we switched over. We digitized it all, but
Yeah.
so no, the students, we had these in the library, and you would have to go into the library and check them out. We had these little machines. I still have one of those in my spare office. And because of course the college has gotten rid of all this.
Yeah.
The students would have to put the carousel in and sit and push a button and watch the slides for if they wanted to review.
Yeah.
And then in class, I'd go get them, take them to class, show them, and then put them back in the library.
It was so much work, and now it's just
It was
on your computer. Just
so much work because I'd have to, because the library was, I never taught in the library. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to take it over to health tech, or because I taught Woody ID in health tech for a long time.
Okay. Health tech. What's that? What's
Oh yeah,
health
the
tech?
big building with the O on top.
Oh, got it. Okay,
Yeah, I used to have
okay.
my office was in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
first I was in the business in College Hall. My office was in College Hall. Then they moved me over to health tech. I was up
Okay.
on the 3rd or 4th floor with Glenn Abke next to me, and then I moved to law enforcement. Were you there during?
I
law
was
enforcement?
not, but
We might
there
have
was
just moved.
there was like I think you mentioned because I don't know if there was like a whole landscape outside that
Right.
you guys would. Take
We
care
do
of
well.
or
We
something.
landscaped the whole building. We did irrigation in the front. We did a patio in the front. We did a patio in the back for construction class,
Got it.
landscape
Okay,
construction.
yeah.
Yep. So no, we were there for quite a while there, and then we moved into math science.
That's right.
That's
where I
where
went.
I've been now for a
Yeah.
while. So,
Yeah.
but no, I've got a lot of years of stuff that's been dragged around, and I even have stuff we have in construction class. Did we have the garage when you were there? I don't know.
No, we had to go to the other side of campus,
Right.
But I don't
It
remember
was
a
the old
garage or
Penna.
anything.
Well, it was an old Penna garage we have where we have a lot of equipment and stuff and some other memorabilia and stuff. Our zoo. Did we do our zoo thing? No, you were before the zoo when we did our displays in the zoo.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
So we kept all that stuff from Oz. I've got Munchkin Land. I've got rainbows. I've got. Oh yeah, we built all this cool stuff.
What are you gonna do with all this things? More importantly, what's your wife gonna let you do with all this stuff?
We'll find out. I don't know. I have been starting to just realize that I'm never really gonna do something with this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've been trying. I'm only there 2 days a week now. I was there 4 days a week, which was driving her crazy. It's like you're retired and you're working 4 days a week. And then they were afternoons or nights. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, really? But the turf class is only 10 weeks, so that ended.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So now I'm only there Tuesday and Thursdays.
Oh.
But I try, every class now. I just started like after a week or two ago to dump something in the garbage before I leave.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So in my office, I try to, kind of fill the can.
Yeah.
Because I'm really not going into my office much anymore. I'm like a
in,
part-time instructor.
Yeah.
I drive in, I go to my class. Part-time instructors don't have offices. I
Yeah,
drive in, I go to my class. I might go over to the offices to make some copies.
Yeah.
And that's when I'll stick my head in and look around and say, okay, do we really? I probably just threw away your landscape designs. I probably just did. I started taking them and, whoops, sorry.
No, you're good.
I started taking them and just saying, do I really need
Yeah.
landscape designs from 20 years ago? No.
Yeah.
So I threw them away. I mean, I did through the years. I'd make copies and I'd show them to students. Say, here's some previous projects. For students that are like just really stuck, they're not creative, or I'm like, okay, let some of the juice. Maybe this will.
Yeah.
I like that. Then fine, copy it. Just and I tell them that all the time when we go to these places, when we go to different gardens or different. If you see something that really is cool, then take that and incorporate it in a design. You don't have to be. Create it.
You don't have
No,
to- yeah.
you don't. You just take it and modify it to your job.
Yeah.
And, so that's one reason I kept the old designs. But for a lot of them, when I copy them, though, I would take the name off.
Oh, yeah.
And the year. Because I didn't want them to see that, holy crap, this is from 1998.
It's been that good.
And, of course, some of them I pitched away a long time ago. But no, yeah, I'm just getting better at
We have to, right?
I have to.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, I'm going to leave stuff, and it's going to be up to the college.
Yeah.
And they're going to throw it all away anyways.
Yep.
There's, what do they need?
You know what? Give
What
them
do
more
they
work.
need?
For people who didn't care, give them more work. You know what?
But yeah. Yeah. What do they need?
Yeah. Well, Foley, I do appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah.
Again, you were like I said somewhere in the podcast, you were a big influence on a lot of people, and a lot of reason people are where they're at is whether it's some criticism that you said that's stuck in people's heads, or things you taught them, or certain classes. You're a big part of it. I know for me, and just speaking for myself, I do appreciate everything you've done for me, and that's why I always showed up every year at those plant sales, because it was important to me to give back to something that's given me so much. So thank you. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate it. It was great to be here, and good to see where you've gone and what you're doing. So that's
Thank
good.
you.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks for downloading this episode of the Nerdball Podcast. If you want to reach out or be on the show, just search the Nerdball Podcast on any social media. If you want to email us, that is the nerdballpodcast@gmail.com. And of course, there's always YouTube, so you can go on there, subscribe to the Nerdball Podcast, and watch the podcast every week. As always, thanks to Real JP Multimedia, Cuddlefish Graphics, Big Daddy Graphics, and Perrysburg Junior High STEM Lab for always supporting the podcast. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.